So top one is, and you still will have a chance to ask questions with the roving mic after, but the top one is great. What role will hydrogen play? Followed by, what can we as Gold Coast residents and voters do to influence all levels of government? To electrify faster, okay. So I'm gonna flick the first one to Tim.
I probably was a bit remiss. I actually put a lot of focus on this last budget because our Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, referenced the future made in Australia, and the Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, and the Finance Minister, Karit delivered on the future made in Australia. They put $22 billion of our taxpayer money into trying to reindustrialise our economy. And I've been campaigning on that for a year, and so I'm very much in favour of it. So I made the comment, it's no longer a free market. In international markets, we can't pretend it is a free market. And if every other country in the world is subsidising their economy and their industrial supply chains, we need to think about it, and we need to extend our competitive advantages. So hydrogen, why do I mention that? Because when I mentioned $22 billion, there was about $7 billion for value-adding mining critical minerals in Australia before we export them. So that's what I mean about reindustrialising our economy. There was also $8 billion for hydrogen, which you might be aware, hydrogen 3-4 years ago was a global hype. It was absolutely hyped beyond all reasonable expectations. The trouble is, hydrogen is a technology, it's been around a long time, but it's not been commercialised, so it's going now across the valley of the death. If you think of the internet, we had the internet, show my age, back, 1990, and then it went really quiet for 5 or 10 years. Like the markets went ballistic, and then they collapsed, and then 10 years later, everything we were talking about in that hype actually came, and it impacted every single business in the world. Hydrogen is going through that valley of death at the moment. So what the federal government did was throw another $8 billion into hydrogen, but where they've reoriented is to say this isn't about exporting hydrogen to Japan, which was the idea 5 years ago. Now, how does Australia get our brilliant wind and solar to Japan? Hydrogen is literally splitting water with electricity and then take the hydrogen and send it off to Japan. What we realise is that's probably a technology that won't happen until 2040, if ever, but ammonia might. So when Albanese and Chalmers threw $8 billion of our taxpayer money into hydrogen, I'm actually comfortable that they're doing it for the right reason. What they're doing is saying, if we're going to do the green iron that I keep talking about, $100 billion investment opportunity a year, we're going to need a lot of hydrogen, because the hydrogen is a chemical reactor and a source of high temperature heat for processing iron ore into green iron. So that was actually a $16 billion investment in our mining industry to help encourage BHP and Rio, the two biggest companies in Australia, Twiggy, number 3, not the third largest, but he's the third largest iron ore player. So in others, to help them work out how they're going to add $100 billion a year to Australian exports before we dig and ship.
And for it to be green hydrogen, it needs to be powered by?
Massive. So we're writing a report at the moment, which is that we need to invest about $50 billion into wind and solar and batteries in the Pilbara to actually provide the firmed renewable energy to drive the decarbonisation of our iron ore. We're talking huge numbers. Green hydrogen is not going to be exported, it'll be embodied in our value-added materials before we export, so I'm all for it.
Okay, to all the other traditional industries that we do over there, but they are really rapidly becoming one and the same in a different form. Second question about what we can do to influence government to electrify faster. Judy, I'm going to send that one to you.
Thanks very much. Well, it'd be really good to actually tell your local member how much you appreciate electrification and how you want more involvement. 1. 2, we've got a role here in our City Council can play an active role by that education and information. It'd be great to have some events at our local libraries about what it looks like for more greater electrification and solar, like a one-stop shop We've got 650,000 residents on the Gold Coast. We've got an amazing story from the Gold Coast City Council, and I think they've got a role to play in educating and making people feel more comfortable with that transition.
Very good. And Judy, the other thing which I
Land's renewable energy target compared to other states around Australia? Are we behind, in the middle, or in the lead?
Goodness gracious, we're in the lead, aren't we now? With by 20. South Australia's better, sorry, but we're next in the lead. 2035 is 80%. Is that right? 75. Okay, I don't exaggerate, Judy. Yeah.
It's a great question. Queensland's coming from way behind. Over the last 2-3 years, it's been staggering to watch the Queensland government really embrace and the opportunity of their jobs and growth plan. But either side, the beautiful thing was we actually saw bipartisan support for a 75%. Now, I'm sure you guys chose 75 because New South Wales in December, we voted, we had bipartisan support, multi-party support, in fact, for 70%. So within 2 months, you guys beat us.
State of origin. Woo!